Well, welcome everyone. I think we'll start. So thank you for joining us today. We've titled this Experience the Transcend Difference. And what we wanted to showcase today is how we are different to some of the other coaching houses around. Some of you are very familiar with us, but we're hoping that you will also learn something new today. And we want to try and create good value for coaches and for your clients. Tony Dickel and Craig McKenzie will uncover some valuable insights for you today to take your coaching skills to new heights. So some of the things we're going to go through today are how you can develop a coach's way of being rather than a way of doing, how we can help you grow your coaching practice in a way which is both meaningful and profitable, and how you and your clients can stay resilient, balanced, and on track in rapidly changing worlds through one of our unique coaching frameworks, MACE. So I will be looking frequently at the chat. So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. I've got one or two to share later. Without further ado, let me introduce our esteemed coaches. Let me just give you a little bit of a background on both of these gentlemen. So Tony, the CEO of Transcend, he is recognized as one of Hong Kong's most experienced and highly credentialed coaches and mindfulness trainer as well. And his expertise lies in helping leaders set challenging, relevant, and highly attractive goals. He's over 30 years of board level experience across a wide range of industries. And he teaches mindfulness-based approaches in his spare time, works with teenagers, helping them to overcome stress and social pressures. And over to Craig. Craig is our head team coach at Transcend International. He has 3 decades of global experience in executive coaching and leadership development. And Craig has extensively coached senior leadership levels across diverse sectors. He specializes in facilitating mindset shifts, strengthening emotional intelligence, and implementing high-impact feedback methodologies. At Transcend, he's on a mission now to pave new paths for a new generation of professional coaches. So let us start. What are some of the differences in our training programs? What are our differentiators? Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Serge. Welcome, everybody. Our hope is to have a bit more of a conversation than a presentation, so feel free to stay on camera and we'll invite you to jump in. A number of you are our alumni, so we're happy to have you in the room with us, and we're going to invite you for your perspectives throughout as well. If there's a spot where you feel you have something to add, then that would be great as well. So there's lots of things that we say differentiate us, and lots of organizations have different perspectives. I think the one that I'd love to just highlight is the fact that we have really worked hard since the beginning of the formation of our organization and our coach training programs to create a learning journey. So, in the beginning, when Tony and I were working on the design, we talked about a coach formation journey. Even before we started to use words like transformation, we really had this idea of how do we connect people with experiences throughout the learning journey? Different starting points, different energy at different phases, different challenges that people face. So one of the keys is we've always had in mind that you can learn the skills of a coach. And that's great. And it will change your life if you do. And if you can develop more of a coaching way of being, then that means you become a person who embodies a coaching mindset. And that in itself can add so much value into the coaching conversation. So our program has become even more focused on really helping people to become the kind of coach that can help people become the kind of people who can achieve the things that are meaningful to them and to their organizations and future generations. So for me, I think that's one of the strong differentiators is that really that learning journey type of style. So that's the one I chose to emphasize. Tony, which one have you chosen to begin with?
Well, to be as a beginning point, just amplifying on what you said there, Craig, that in the context of helping a coach, developing a way of being that is conducive to what we call transformational coaching. What we find, and we might hear this from some of the alumni that are actually here tonight, that what we also find is that this goes well beyond just simply learning coaching skills. The creation of a way of being requires quite a lot of reflective practice, which we strongly encourage. A lot of challenge, so a lot of challenge sometimes at the level of almost at our identity. The stories that we tell ourselves about the world that we hold to be true, we may have held them to be true since we were 7 years old. And yet in some cases, they may impede our ability to accompany somebody else along a transformational journey. So we often say that we can't, as coaches, we can't accompany somebody on a journey on which we haven't traveled ourselves. And so on the program, we invite you to go on to a self-transforming journey yourselves, so you can then accompany others on that journey. So I just want to say that to amplify what Craig said, and then I'll sort of also, if I may, share my slide deck and just pop out something else that we feel is a differentiator that may appeal, tends to appeal to quite a few people. And that is what we call evidence-based. So there's a number of schools out there, and we look at some of the material that they train, and we wonder, where on earth is this actually coming from? What is the grounding behind the things that they're teaching, the things that they're saying? We have a strong point of view on two questions. Question one: why do people do what they do? What is it that drives our behavior? Question two is, and why is it that people don't do what it is that they need to do so that they can be who they need to be? We need to have a point of view on that so that we can support people as they challenge these perspectives themselves. And we often say that at the first level of coaching, a coach's job is to help or support a client in their quest to do what they need to do so that they can be who they would love to be. At the second level, which is much more interesting and often very necessary, the role of a coach is to support an individual to be who they need to be in a moment, so that they can then do effortlessly what they need to do, so that they can be who they would like to be. So it looks a bit circular, be who they need to be in a moment of choice, so that they can do what they need to do in those moments, so that they can be who they would like to be at longer term and in their lives, and of course have what they would like to have in their lives. And I'm not going to go through all of this evidence base, but I think it's evident that we have a very strong evidence base behind our work, and anybody that's been through our programs will know this. And there's just some of it up there in terms of what it is that is the underpinning theoretical basis for our point of view, which is very, very strong and not controversial. So I'll stop there because I can go on for a long time on this topic, as Greg knows. Where do we go from here, guys? If anybody wants to comment on that, by the way, anybody from the alumni, please jump in at any point.
And maybe stop screen sharing, Tony, so we can have a bit more conduciveness to conversation.
Great idea. There we go.
Well, I can share a little bit about my experience and why I find it Transcend to be different to some of the other stuff that I've done. It really is just being recognizing who you truly are. You can really see yourself, and you've got, there's great teachers, Tony and Craig, always kind of putting that mirror up and kind of saying, so
and our faculty team.
So yeah, it's been It's been a great experience for me. I started very early on in Transcend's evolution, and when I see how it's evolved, it really is a truly great experience to have had. Okay, anybody else? Would anybody else like to share anything here before we carry on?
Just a short one. I had a conversation with a team leader and here in Asia, and because I have no other, experience in being trained in coaching from other supplier or from other companies than Transcend suppliers. That sounds terrible. It's not a supplier. And he said it was like basically what he had gotten out of this was like having conversations. That was all, it sounded terribly empty. And of course, Craig, you talked about journey, having being on a journey. I think therefore it's very personal, and I guess you'll have different replies to the question with every person that you ask. So for me, it's been also the possibility to and the capacity to develop a genuine and profound interest in others, and for that I'm extremely grateful.
Well, thank you so much for that, Arnie. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may say one more thing on this, is that in order to be a great coach working at a deeper level with clients, we do need to understand ourselves very, very well. So we call this actionable self-awareness, and that's another one of the models other than MACE that we provide. And the thing that many of our students report is that they have changed in ways that go far beyond just learning how to be a great coach. They have changed in ways that impact on almost every aspect of their lives, how they deal with difficulties in relationships, how they deal with their families, with their husbands, wives, kids, with people that are giving them a hard time at work, when their team is not performing, when they're angry, when they're happy, when they're depressed, when they're anxious. They learn the skills of being able to help themselves first when they are facing what John Kabat-Zinn calls the full catastrophe of modern work and life. And we need to understand that. We need to, we believe, our point of view is that we need to be on that journey ourselves to some degree, so that we can there's a lot of coaching is a lot about empathy, and if we're going to be empathic and compassionate with our clients, we need to feel what they feel, or at least believe that we can feel what they feel. And so we need to have been on those. We need to have faced those difficulties ourselves and come through them. So I'll stop there on that.
Okay, so you've mentioned some ways there, Tony, of ways we develop a coach's way of being. Is there anything else?
Well, what are you pointing to? There's a leading question in there, Serge. You want me to go to the to the MACE model now, or
no, not yet. No, don't go to the MACE model yet.
All right. So yeah, I think it's really facilitating. I mean, I feel that one needs, it's all, coaching is about attention. And, the evidence shows that when we have something in our mind, that our behavior follows our attention. What is it that we're attending to in what we call a moment of choice? So our point of view is that we have these moments in our lives, many of them, and occasionally there is what we call a key moment of choice that pops up in our life. And a key moment of choice is an opportunity, perhaps, that we need to notice, that we have an opportunity to do something different from that which we habitually do. And this, of course, is the domain of coaching. It's the domain of behavioral change. But behavioral change needs to, so we may commit to behavioral change in particular situations. But then when we approach the moment where we have the opportunity to practice, that change, then for various reasons, we may not do it. It may be that we just forget in the moment because we're caught up in the flow of the full catastrophe of modern life. And we just forget our commitment to a new way of approaching a situation. Or quite commonly, we remember the commitment, but we say things like, oh, no, this is not the time to listen. This is the time to roll my eyes and interrupt and do what I always did and get aggressive. Or this is not the time to be brave and make a contribution in this meeting. This is the time to keep quiet, even though I have something to say. And these are the moments that we call them moments of choice. And coaching is about it's about supporting a client to remember what they need to remember in that key moment just before they have the opportunity to practice a new behavior. What is it that's getting in the way? And what is it that they need to bring back to mind, including the skills and the resources and the behaviors that may be appropriate, and all of the things that might get in the way of them being able to do that and why they're not true in that very, very moment. Because in the moment that you have a chance to change a behavior, you've got about 0.3 seconds to bring back the required practice into your mind and then into your behavior before you've already done what you've always done. And that is why transformational coaching, when people say, oh, I don't need transformational coaching, I just need to change this behavior. Well, actually, you might need to transform something about the way that your belief systems, the assumptions that you're making about the world. You might need to change those, and you might need to remember those changes in the moment that you need them in order to be able to execute even a simple behavioral change. So I don't know if that sort of answers your question there, Serge.
Mm-hmm. Craig, what about yourself?
Yeah, reflecting on how we help coaches transform their way of being is kind of what we're aiming at here. And as Tony mentioned, it's about the moment of choice, and it'll be interesting. And this might be interesting. There's of course, I mentioned there's a number of our alumni here, but you might not know this. But in our system of developing coaches, we actually have a lot of clarity on where someone is at in the learning journey, the type of feedback, the type of reflection we invite them into, in particular in individual mentor coaching supervision, group mentor coaching supervision, and observed coaching practice. So the practice-rich environments of the program are where we'll invite coaches to really think about the kinds of things that Tony just shared about. So, for example, I was reviewing some videos of our coaches, which is one of the assignments that people do. A lot of feedback rich. We spend a lot of time reviewing these videos, making sure our feedback is relevant and practical to that coach at the level that they're at. And some coaches, they're wrestling with the fixer reflex, the helper reflex. I have to help, I have to add value, I have to do something, which is, again, something they're paying attention to that is then causing them to show up in the coaching conversation in a way that they might not want to show up. So we help them learn that. And to others, it's a deeper story. One of our clients just last week, I was working with him in mentor coaching session supervision with him. He's an advanced coach. He's already credentialed. He's seeking an additional credential. And the thing was more about his own stories, about himself, and how that pops up in the coaching session and then forces him, when it's in his attention, he then acts in ways that probably he doesn't want to act in the coaching session. Nothing evil, just potentially overhelping, relying on assumptions, judging, asking leading questions, those kinds of things which infect the coaching relationship. So I guess the thing for me is the way we develop the coach's way of being is one where we're caring about the whole process, and we recognize that people are at different levels, different places on their journey. Where you are is where you are. And then also we're pretty overt about the fact that we create a feedback-rich environment. We don't want to cause anyone to lose face or embarrass people, but you're here to develop as a coach, and we take that very seriously. And that helps us to challenge you in your way of being. And there's also coaches who say, hey, I just want to be a tactical coach. I just want to help people with performance. I'm not interested in this transformation stuff. I want to get better at the skills. And again, that's where they are. So that's fine. We could do that as well. But sooner or later, they're going to bump into a client or themselves in a way where actually something deeper might need to happen. And if they choose to go that way, they have a strong foundation. And if they don't, they still have a strong foundation and grounding, which makes them more resourceful. So a way of being, that's kind of the ways we do that. I'd be really curious to some of you that have taken our programs, if you want to, how did we help you shift in your way of being, if you're willing to share that, and if you're not, that's fine as well. I'm curious if anybody wants to share.
Yeah, Craig, can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mia, please spotlight.
Yeah. I think there is something. Yeah, I realized. Actually, it was last week. So I started my coach journey with Transcend in February this year. So it's very fresh still. But I had one of my clients asking me, how your life has changed since you've become a coach, and what's the difference. And I think one thing that I really learned to do is because there is a lot of emphasis throughout the program around self-reflection and taking the time, to look at what we've done, how we have reacted, and reflect on it, and be a little bit more detached from your past behavior and look at them like, an object, and look at them and say, okay, why did I do that? And how, how I wanted to appear or to show up, or what I wanted to do instead. And, next time, how will I do that? And this self-reflection exercise, because I do it, after each coaching session, and we practice also a lot of that during the training. It really, I feel like my muscle, my self-reflection muscle has been really trained and stretched, and it's good because it's very powerful in life to be able to self-reflect. So if I would gain just one thing from this program, of course it's not one, it's multiple, and it's change of life, but it's this self-reflection capability which is extremely useful and has really transformed the way I see things.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Flora. The one thing maybe to say about that is that if a person can just learn how to watch themselves, it's like we call it turning on the internal supervisor. If we can only keep an eye on ourselves as we're moving through our world, rather than being caught up in our thoughts, feelings, and therefore actions. If we can just learn to be able to watch ourselves in action, so many things would change. But sadly, for many of us, having that what we call metacognitive awareness, which is the ability to think about our thinking in the moment, is really, really difficult. And a lot of our training really is about helping people to develop that metacognitive awareness. And when they do, everything changes. Because without metacognitive awareness, we can't remember in a moment what it is that we really care about in that moment. We're only being hijacked by what the mind is telling us that we care about in that moment, which unfortunately is not true for many of us. And if we indulge what the mind is screaming at us in the moment, then we'll go off track relative to what we want in the longer term. And so that's that. So thanks very much for bringing that point up, Flora. Yeah.
Thank you, Flor. Thank you, Tony. I just wanted to, about even for myself, it really has been how it's changed me as an individual. It really I'm beyond the training, so it's great to be a coach within the coach training, but also to be able to be a self-reflective person outside of the training as well. So it's kind of switching. It isn't a matter of switching it on and off. It's almost keeping the switch on all the time. And so that's been quite a good thing for myself.
Yes, sometimes I think I'm always a beginner, and the subject of my learning is me.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So any questions from anyone so far? Craig, over to you.
Super. Well, we're going to pause. In a moment, we're going to take you through a little bit of a reflective exercise. And even if you're familiar with the material, we hope it'll be different. But I just want to highlight, of course, this is the business that we do. We train coaches, we train team coaches, supervisors, team coaching supervisors. We work with clients globally, leadership. But the core of our business is really our professional coach training. So we've restructured the way we do it in the last year to make it much more accessible, great more choice. So our programs start the moment you enroll, and the learning begins right away. And we offer this sort of learning cycles 3 times a year for our certificate in professional coaching, and then twice a year for the advanced portion. And people can also bridge into that. So that means if you've taken coach training somewhere else and you want to achieve an ICF level 2 certification or an EMCC certification, then you can, bridge into our program. The reality of that is we have to have a conversation to find out what you've done and who you did it with, and will the organization recognize it. But this just gives us, you a little bit of picture of how we do things and what we do. And you can take that beginning stage. You can and possibly achieve EMCC or ICF accreditation. You can take that stage 2, bridging from another program, or you can at the very beginning say, "Hey, I would really want to be a professional coach, and I want to commit to the entire learning journey." And again, we offer that in cycles, and that's up to you. There's links that we're posting in the chat that you can go to if you want more information. If you want to refer people, we'd of course love that. And if you're interested to have a conversation about what's right for you, then we're really happy to do that and really help you to find out what's best for you. So that's just a quick sort of overview of what we do. The other thing that's coming, and it's not finalized yet, but it'll be coming soon, is we have a mentor coaching supervision package that we're selling for the year. So people sign up for a year. They can attend group sessions. There's 3 hours of individual, and then there's also observed coaching. So you can select how you sort of do the hours that you want. And those will be based on some interesting topics that go deeper into our learning, but also into things like ethics and passing, assessments, as well as working in other ways with clients. And then we're going to talk in just a moment and invite you to reflect on this 4 capabilities, what we call the MACE model. We're going to have you experience it. And we're also doing a deep dive into that. So this will go beyond the training that we do in our program. And that will be a 6-week product that you'll be able to go on a journey. And it can be for leaders, for coaches. You could put your clients through it and at the same time coach them as they go through it, and it might enhance that. So lots of opportunity there. So with that, one of the differentiators, and maybe Serge, I'll just segue here if it's all right, is this model that we have developed over time. And when we started our coach training, and Serge was one of the very early people that took our coach training. Some people took it, a long time ago. It was in a formative stage, and it's of course evolved since then and continues to evolve, as everything does. So, as Tony and I have, worked on all this stuff from the beginning, but Tony's the guy who really is about the grounding and that research basis. How has so overview of the MACE model quick, and then how has it developed and evolved? And then we're going to take people through an experience of it. That'll take about 20 minutes so far. Go for it, Tony.
So just a quickie, just before I get into this, just a quick quickie. We do have some, now I'm not saying that anybody should do this, but there are some students that come to us as ACC level students. They've already gone through, foundational coach training with another school. And yet, for whatever reason, they decide that they want to redo their foundational training with us. So we've had quite a number of those, and I would say that they all report that the training that we have offered has been profound relative to what they'd had before. So, you know, and that is because even at our foundational level, we start getting into the transformative work from the get-go, So it's part of our philosophy. So that's that. So let's just talk to you about what is one of the overarching models that we will train you through our program. And as Craig mentioned, we also have advanced training that goes on a deeper dive into this very important model. And we call this the MACE model or the 4 capabilities model. We used to call it the 4 balances model. This model is sort of like, sometimes we call it the quantum theory of everything about human behavior. I've often challenged people to tell me anything else about human behavior that doesn't fit into this model, you know. And sometimes we talk about the 4 capabilities for staying on track. And if there's anything else other than that, after you've heard this, please do let us know and we'll think about that. But it seems that everything about showing up skillfully relative to our goals and aspirations is about either motivational, attentional, emotional, and cognitive capability. So what I'm going to do is going to go through these very, very briefly, capability by capability, and then as we go through the capabilities, we're going to ask you a question to reflect on for a few moments about each capability as we cover it. All right. So the first one of these capabilities, we call it motivational capability. Now we say it's the first one, but the thing to know is that all of these capabilities interact with each other simultaneously. So whilst, of course, we have to teach them in sequence, and we do, in fact, they all need to be active within us all at the same time in order for us to stay on track in the middle of this profoundly overwhelming world in which we live today. So motivational capability in a nutshell is about knowing our values, knowing our motivators, knowing what it is that we really care about. And just taking it one step further, the ability to set goals that inspire action towards those things, those values, those motivators, aspirations, and goals. And being clear within ourselves on how we would love to be able to show up in a variety of contexts, particularly difficult contexts of our lives. So really, you could say it's holding in our attention what it is that we really care about and having it inform our behavior. Because many of us care about many things, but it doesn't necessarily inform our behavior. So moving on then to the question. So we're okay to share the question now, Craig?
Sure, but I want to tell people what they're going to do, though, so that they have that clarity. So here's the question. So there'll be one question for each of these. And what we'd love you to do is just reflect on an area of your own development, your own way of being, your own person, where you would love to see some change. Simple as that, just where you would love to see some change. And then each time we ask a question, we just want you to reflect on it through that lens. So the first, and ideally you might write something down, you might type it somewhere, you might just hold it in your mind, but we're going to move you around. So the first question is right here. So as you look at this question, what is it you wish you could be caring about in those moments when you're behaving in a way that you maybe wish you could do better or something different? What is it you wished you cared about? So you don't need to think about what you care about in that moment. You could, but what do you wish you would care about in that moment? So we'll give you about 30 seconds just to reflect on that quietly. And then...
And just before you go in there, Craig, just to amplify that slightly, if you don't mind, because it is, I think, slightly important. What is it that you wish that you could be caring about most in that moment? Because in the moment when you're behaving off target, you're caring about something, and that is why you're doing it. So maybe what is it that you could be caring about most, or perhaps even instead of in that moment? Sorry, Craig. Sorry.
All right. So now reflect, everybody. And all right, let's go to the next one. Well, we'll invite you to share later if you want. What did you learn, or what's opening up for you? So next one, Tony.
Thanks. So the next one is what we call attentional capability. And attentional capability is quite simple in a way, following on from what we said earlier on about the fact that our behavior follows what is available to the mind, or what is in the mind at the moment of choice. Some psychologists sometimes call this target fixation. What is in the mind is where our behavior is going to move. And so it would be really lovely, wouldn't it, if we are able to know at any moment what is in our mind without any resistance to what is in the mind, or without any reaction to what is in the mind, just knowing in the moment what is in the mind. And just extending slightly from that, this means that we're able to maintain clarity and calmness of mind, moment by moment, even in the middle of stress and distraction. If we want to know what's in our mind in a particular moment and how that might be informing our behavior, then we're not going to be able to do that without an element of clarity and calmness of mind, even in the middle of stress and distraction. So that then we are able to redirect our focus of attention on what is required in order to act what we call skillfully, in line with our goals and aspirations in that moment. All right? So that's the, if you wish, theoretical basis of that attentional capability. And the question we would like to ask you is this. So again, related to a goal or an aspiration that you have, what are some of the things that hijack your attention? What are some of the things that hijack your attention, or maybe get in the way of your attention being where it needs to be in order for you to progress?
We're giving you about 30 seconds each time, but we're ready for the next one.
Okay, so the next, if you remember the MACE acronym, motivation, attention, the next one is cognition. We talk about cognitive capability. And this, in a nutshell, is really just knowing that thoughts are not fact. Thoughts are not facts. They're just things that come into the mind based upon our unique history, all of our memories. Sometimes we like to say that the you, and this is slightly controversial for some people, it can be quite disruptive, but it doesn't make it any less true, that the you that you think you are is actually a figment of your imagination. It's a collection of all of the memories that you've ever had in your life, most of which you can't remember, but they're still there acting upon you since about 3 months before you were born, actually, right? So so this is about knowing your thought processes, the stories that you're telling yourself that might take you off track, preventing you from attending skillfully to your goals, values, or aspirations. Seeing those stories for what they are, stories. So that's kind of it. One example of this, just in case you're struggling with it, might be, about the if-then stories that we tend to tell ourselves. We tend to think that, for example, if she disagrees with me, that means she disrespects me, and therefore I must behave like this to cope with that. And it's all, for most of us, pretty automatic. And we need to know that. So the question that relates to this is this. So what is one thing that you wish you could let go of in order that you might be happier or more successful? So of course, when we talk about one thing that you might need to let go of, it could be something that you might need to let go of in a moment that you're reacting to something in a habitual way that is not useful to you. Or it might just be something that you're attached to or you really want that you might wish that you didn't want so much, so that you could be free to make progress with something else. Something like that. So we'll leave you with that for a few moments. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So now we shift to the last one. And I just have the correct question on my slides, Tony. So when it comes to the question, just let me take over and I can do that.
Okay, got you. Okay, so the final of the capabilities is what we call emotional capability. And what we've said here on the slide seems a little bit weird. It's feeling rather than being our emotions. So hands up if you've ever said to yourself or someone else, I am really frustrated right now. Hands up if you've ever said that. Or I'm really angry right now, or really scared. Well, of course, you are not, actually. You are. So when I say I'm really angry, I'm not. I'm still Tony. I'm not angry. I may be, but I may be having what we call a psychosomatic, a physiological and psychological experience, which my mind is interpreting as anger. And it's also creating for me, rather unhelpfully often, a coping strategy to deal with that anger, which often drives me perhaps into directions that I later realize I didn't want to go. So in order to feel rather than be our emotions in this way, we need to detach slightly from them. In other words, we need to know at any moment, again, with this metacognitive awareness, we need to be able to hold an awareness, a non-reactive awareness of what is in our emotional field moment by moment, so that we can use the information that the emotion is presenting us skillfully in service of our goals and aspiration. All right, so there's that. And again, on the program, of course, we go into a lot more detail and we give you a lot more practices that help you to really feel what it is that we're saying around these things. All right. So Craig, you say you've got the question there, because actually I don't.
Yeah,
I'll stop
can
sharing.
you just stop sharing, and I'll.
Yep. There we go.
I'll get it up right away. All right. So last question to reflect on.
Thinking of a time when you were angry or frustrated or fearful or otherwise in the midst of what we call an afflictive emotion. So an afflictive emotion means an emotion that doesn't serve a useful purpose. Right? Emotions have a design, and often we use them in a way that doesn't serve their intended purpose, but that's another story. So when you were experiencing one of these things, what did that emotion actually want of you? What did it want you to do? And then maybe if you could reflect slightly deeper, how did that relate to what you want, what you actually really care about?
Well, all right. So we've invited you to reflect on some place where you would rather have done something, been someone that you didn't, and then given you some questions to reflect. So what we want to do is spend the next little while just finding out what came up for you, what connected with you. And then, our plan is to hang around afterwards for questions. We should have a few minutes at the end. You can ask questions now, but we'd love you more to just start where something happened for you or what you learned from this process. So Ben, you've unmuted yourself. We're guessing that might mean you have something.
Yeah, thank you. Craig and Tony, it just was very timely. I had a discussion today that not in a coaching moment, but in a different context that actually didn't go the way I wanted. I ended up being upset and angry. We decided to let the topic go. And I think probably my ego got hijacked during that. So I didn't get the reaction or understanding that I was hoping to get. And I think, at that moment, I reacted at trying to, I guess, protect myself, or at least how I'd like to be treated, or I would like someone to react to something that I said. But if I take that approach that we're looking to now, it's actually I would love to be a different person in that moment. I would love to just take it and maybe understand that the other person cares as well, and we just need to have a different type of conversation. So yeah, very timely.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Someone else?
Yes, I think I echo exactly what Ben just said. Same kind of thing happened to me week, 10 days ago, and still not dealing with it, to be honest, but perhaps I need some coaching to deal with the difficulty that I faced. But yeah, I wanted to be someone else as well. I wanted to say something and I didn't, and it's not a good feeling when you feel you're being attacked and you can't fight back. But again, it wasn't a coaching situation, so very similar to Ben, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And some of these things can be quite difficult, right? So we have experiences that happen in our lives like this that make us feel really bad. And when we feel really bad, it's because the subconscious mind is actually telling us that we're not safe, that something is in danger. And sometimes we just need to go in and ask ourselves the question, so what is it that is actually being threatened here? And we often, of course, find that it's a story line that is running within us that is being challenged. Like, I need to be respected. I need to be loved. I need to be whatever it is, the cleverest person in the room, or seem to be the cleverest person in the room, or whatever it might be. And when we sense that there's a violation of that, we develop an emotional response and then a behavior that is designed more to keep us safe from genuine physical danger than it is to protect our ego. We have time. When the ego is being stabbed, it's not our body that's being stabbed. We at least do have some time to say, ouch, that was hard, that hurts. And what do I really care about now? But unfortunately, what we tend to do is we react as if our body has been stabbed and we punch immediately or we run immediately or whatever it is that we do. So thank you for that. Anyone else would like to speak other than me?
Maybe I can share something quickly.
Please, yeah.
Please.
I remember a couple of months ago, I had a fight with someone I deeply care about. And I think what was interesting, and I reminded myself of that, is that when I realized and I said to that person, what I just need is your attention. And once I realized that, and something happened, a lot of anger, frustration, or emotion kind of cleared. And then we were able to have like a reasonable conversation. But once I realized that, oh, actually, I just want attention. And it's not about you're giving me that. I just realized that I just want that. That's it. I said it. And then I can move on. And we were actually it was happy ending of the conversation once I moved on that.
Fantastic. That's great.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, and I mean, it's great that you're sharing from your own life and not as a coach, right? So it's like, how do we help you? So when you're coaching someone, the 4 balances, again, working on any of them is kind of working on all of them, but what's the avenue that's interesting or accessible for our client? Some coaches want that, or some clients and coaches in training want to explore cognitive. They're comfortable there. Some, it's an emotion. And is it to deal with that emotion, or is it to work on our attention or to work on our motivation? So part of the journey, in our coach training is one, you're experiencing this throughout the program. We blend it in all the way along. And then 2, it's happening with you, which means you're experiencing it and you're then able to understand the challenge of that journey with others. But you also have the overview. Which, just because emotion is the thing that works for you doesn't mean it's the thing that might work for your client. So we want to, again, help you to develop the ability to be, your experience is your experience. And each one of you has said, yeah, even like I was like Ben, or I kind of like this. Yeah, there's a commonality, but inside the mind, it is all a totally different animal energy system, everything. So, part of what we're doing in coaching is helping people to really find out what they want, make that really what they want, not what someone else thinks they want or what they think they should want or what they wish they wanted, but really what they want. And then how do they remember? How do they stay focused on that? And how do they manage the journey? So this is where sustainable change comes in, right? So it's not just, yeah, I want to change that, and yeah, I got this thing. There's a cycle and layers upon layers of insights that build, that help someone develop that kind of awareness that Flora talked about, others talked about even, what is it really going on for me here? So thanks, everybody. That's great so far. You want to say something, Tony?
I'd like to share, if it's okay, an experience from my own life that might help this to land a little bit as well, just in case it's not landed for a few people. So I think most people would realize, if they knew me, that my wife and I have got a great relationship and that I love my wife very, very much. Right? Now, the fact that I love my wife very, very much, and it's probably the thing that I care most deeply about, perhaps in the world, is that particular relationship. It doesn't stop me from being completely unreasonable in certain situations with her. So one example of it was that she was working in the study room and I kind of wandered in and said something to her. And it started off as a very benign conversation, but I said something that caused her to react. And then, of course, as is traditional, I then reacted to her reaction. And then within probably about, 10, 15 seconds, we were right in the middle of it. And of course, when we get right into the middle of it like that, we might both say things that require cleanup later. And of course, if that happens again and again and again, it starts to undermine the efficacy of the relationship. So we certainly don't want that to happen. So I was right in the middle of the flow of anger, with being unaware, probably for about, maybe 20, 30 seconds. And then there was something within me that caused me to jump into this state of metacognition. And I was able to ask myself in that, to step out of the flow and ask myself, what is it that I really care about most here? And of course, it was I care about how I show up with my wife, what I bring to that relationship. And I wasn't bringing myself into that relationship in that moment of choice, in the way that I had committed to bring myself into the relationship. I mean, committed with myself to bring myself into that relationship. And with that awareness, I just stepped out of it. And in the middle of a flow of language, I just said something like this. I said, darling, I'm going downstairs to make a coffee. Would you like one? Just like that, with compassion, with an empathic tone, et cetera, et cetera. And she just started laughing and I started laughing. And I said, see, look, I've just caught myself in the act. And that's what we need to do. We need to catch ourselves in the act more often. And if we do, everything will change. So that's a story that relates to my life. And that spoke to motivational balance, cognitive balance, knowing the storylines and the fact that they weren't true, attentional balance, being able to switch my attention away from what I don't want towards what I do want, and emotional balance, being able to see the emotion for what it was, just a psychosomatic experience that was driving my mind and therefore driving my behavior in that moment. Again, I'm not trying to set myself up as a hero here. We can all do this, and we do all do this from time to time.
Thank you, Tony. Well, catching you in the moment. Thank you for all of that. Our time is nearly up. We would love you to speak with you. If you want to have a conversation with any of us directly, please do so. And we're going to now go over to Q&A. So if you would like to stay, please do. And leave whenever you want to. But thank you for joining us today. It's been great to have you. And thank you for everyone that's shared with us today as well.
If you'd like to put a comment into chat about your experience with this session, if you don't want to speak, that would be lovely.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, everyone. Formal part is at this stage kind of ending. We told you it would be an hour, so it's ending right on time. And then, yeah, if you want to stay, we're happy to hang around. We've committed our time to be here for the next little while. But if you want to go, please feel free. Thanks so much. And we'll be in touch with some details and, follow-up things and all that. Looking forward to seeing you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Thanks, Ben, for your comments.
Yeah.
Thank you, Janie. We'll follow up with you, okay, without a doubt. Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah. Anybody have thoughts they want to jump in with, share, questions about? Happy to spend a few moments in service of your learning and development.
Thank you for all your comments.
Thanks, Paul. I'm glad you were here. You want to say hi to Tony? You didn't meet. Paul and I chatted the other day, Tony, and I invited him to come along. Maybe he'll say hello.
Hi, Tony.
Sorry, I can't. Sorry, I don't even know which Paul we're talking about here. So I can't see you.
You have to change to gallery, or maybe take off spotlight, Mia, so we can just be
let's
on
just
gallery.
have the gallery view. Because I've got a few Pauls in my life, but I'm not quite sure which particular Paul Craig is referring to.
I'm here. Somewhere in the screen.
Is this a Paul that I know, Craig, or?
No, Paul's new to us. He was introduced
Hi, Paul.
to our, he's possibly joining our bridging into our coach training.
I can see you now, by the way. So
thank you. Nice
do you have any questions
as well,
for
us?
I think. I don't really have a question. I really like the model. It is something that I'm trying to apply to myself very much. Really being aware at the present moment. What is my limiting belief, my negative emotion? What is it that I really want? What is the ultimate purpose of what I'm doing right now? And not to be clouded by other thoughts, other people's opinion, other past suffering experiences, and just to be there sometimes in my body. I like to do that with stress. When I'm stressed, I really take time to see where it is in my body, and I can be able to let go. So I really like that approach. And this is what
lovely.
I'm trying to bring up to a lot of people, but it's so difficult. The experience that I had with NLP is a long process of getting people to take off the layers of their onions and to come to the dear truth.
Yes.
That's a real difficult, long process. So
peel back the onion.
Yeah, peel back the onion. Yeah, and then you have to dress up the onion again with positive stuff that helps.
Lovely, nice metaphor.
Skillful decisions. I like that word that you presented.
Yeah.
Cool.
Paul, it sounds like you may be it sounds like I'm making an assumption here, which of course is always dangerous, but it sounds like you might be a mindfulness practitioner. Is that correct?
Yeah, 17 years of yoga, 7 years of breathing practice, and and a little bit of meditation.
You're well on the journey, no doubt.
Oh yeah,
self-awareness.
Yeah, that's really key.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Right. Just for context, Paul is a friend from Bangkok, and of course he deserves the very best. Hence, inviting him to take contact with Transcend and see if that's what he needs, right? So that's a discussion you might have together.
That's very kind of you to say that, Arnie.
Thanks for bringing me that in, connecting us.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thanks, both of you.
Okay, I'll log off here. I'll let you continue if you need to. Thanks so much for
thanks, Arne.
sharing everything, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
Cheers.
See you
next
time,
Arnie. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. We'll close now. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever's ahead of you, and we'll see you the next thing we see you at.